As the Phoenix Suns have emerged as the best team in basketball, many people still do not know about Deandre Ayton, who is arguably the most underrated player on this team. Even when you look at the national media, most people aren't going to say Deandre Ayton is a top 5 center. And if you put him in your top 3, then many people are going to ask if you're on crack. Honestly, I think the only reason why he doesn't get as much attention is people really don't pay attention to his game. Because Deandre Ayton has a very different style when it comes to being a center, and a lot of people don't like to recognize it. In this video, we're going to be breaking down Deandre Ayton's game and proving why he is one of the most underrated players in the NBA and why the NBA is going to be terrified of him. Now, before I get into the video, I do have a quick announcement. Today's video is brought to you by Spex Media Plus. Spex Media Plus is basically my brand new membership program that I literally just started yesterday. There are going to be a bunch of benefits, different members only videos, and other ways you guys can interact with me on there. It's only $5 a month, and if you guys do support it, it would mean the world to me. And if you do want to check it out, there's a link in the description below, or if you are on desktop, just click the join button. Now, with all of that out the way, let's get into this breakdown. Now, as I said in the intro of this video, Deandre Ayton is very underrated, and many people really don't look at him as a top center. But what's so interesting to me is he's not like all the other centers, and he can do just about everything. What I love about Deandre Ayton is he's so versatile, and he can do many things. For example, doing things like catching alley-oops and always being in the best situation down low to get an easy basket. Deandre is very good at those simple, less than 5-foot jumpers, even those layups. This season, he's shooting 74% from the field when he's shooting less than 5 feet from the basket. Now, it's not like a Rudy Gobert situation where you give it to him down low and that's the only thing he's able to do. Sure, he's very tall in stature and he's obviously going to be able to dunk the ball and make these simple 5-foot jumpers. But with guys like Rudy Gobert, all he's really going to do is either do a layup or try to dunk it. Other than that, his bag really isn't that deep. However, these simple little hook shots that he does that are very much effective are very underrated because he puts himself in a position where he can catch the ball and he can shoot it over any defender. Most of the best centers in the NBA would just try to do a post fadeaway or body their way into a basket, but Deandre is a lot smarter than that. While he does have the tools to do things like just body up people and just try to force his way to a basket, he's heavily involved in the offense to a point where he can be wide open for an easy dunk or a simple little shot and it's gonna go in. He's especially very good when it comes to taking contact. He's not worried to get involved with someone, and we've seen that be very prominent. Also, when you have a point guard like Chris Paul and he's very good in the pick and roll and able to get you the ball, that is something very important. While some people look at Deandre and say the only reason why he's been doing good is because he's playing with Chris Paul now, I would like to disagree a little bit. While in a pick and roll situation, I definitely can see that because obviously it's mostly Paul that's going to get the ball to Deandre Ayton, and maybe statistically he's doing better. We also need to look at the fact that Deandre has developed a lot more moves that you really don't see with other centers in the league. Most centers are going to do one simple move, whether it's a post fadeaway or, like I mentioned earlier, just trying to body up with someone. Or maybe they're a shooting center that can pull up from 3. You even have your centers that are a liability on offense. But Deandre Ayton can do just about everything that any center should be able to and a lot more. He's what you would call a unicorn player, which is someone that can do a lot of different things and isn't considered normal at their position. And while he's not going to pull up from 3 every single play, Deandre Ayton has a mid-range game that is so spot on. Guarding Deandre, you probably expect him to post you up or maybe try to get a pick in for his point guard. However, Deandre, if he is wide open and you're not guarding him less than 3 feet, he's going to take that mid-range jumper and he's probably going to make it. Currently, Deandre Ayton is shooting 61.1% from the mid-range on 3 attempts per game. He's also one of 3 players that are shooting higher than 60% from the mid-range, and one of them is ironically his teammate in Chris Paul. While Deandre is not going to jack up jumpers, it is important to note the fact that he is able to take those shots and make them at an efficient rate. Now, don't get me wrong, guys like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid are good at taking mid-range shots, but they have to set up their defender and make him just force a post fadeaway that sometimes just doesn't look that pretty. However, Deandre is able to put himself in a situation where he can take a very fast jumper with a quick release. Something else that I also like about Deandre Ayton is the fact that he is very much involved in the offense. Most centers that are not named Nikola Jokic really don't have the biggest role when it comes to actually running the offense. Yeah, guys like Joel Embiid are obviously going to score the most points on offense, but most of the plays are either designed for them or they're just running an ISO situation or maybe just getting it thrown to them in the paint. Deandre Ayton, on the other hand, you could say is the quarterback of this offense, which Monty Williams himself has said that. He's able to set picks for guys, he's able to get Chris Paul or Devin Booker or whoever's just bringing the ball up wide open. And depending who's guarding who, sometimes Deandre Ayton will be wide open for an easy dunk or a simple mid-range jumper. Now, if we want to look at the matchup versus the Dallas Mavericks, I'm sorry, but with all due respect, Deandre Ayton is going to drop 25 and 10 per game. See, with the New Orleans Pelicans, they had Jonas Valanciunas, who I'm not saying he guarded Deandre Ayton the best because DA definitely did have the better of him sometimes in the game. There's no one on Dallas that can even remotely remotely guard Deandre Ayton. I expect Chris Paul and Devin Booker obviously to put up masterclasses each game. They are two talented players and they're gonna get their buckets. I'm not worried about that. But I expect the Mavericks to try to obviously limit that, but I think they're going into this knowing that, hey, Booker's gonna average about 25 to 30 points in the series and Chris Paul's gonna have around 20 to 25. It really just depends on the flow of the game. But to be honest, it's kind of like the same thing with the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns expecting Luka to have 25 to 30 to probably even more. And while Mikal Bridges is definitely going to be guarding Luka Doncic, I'm not sure how well Mikal can do. I think he can do amazing, but it really does depend. But anyways, the whole reason why I even bring that up is, of course, the Mavericks are going to try to stop Booker and Paul, but they're not going to do as well, and they're not going to stop them from both combining probably for 50 points. The question and the biggest test is going to be, can they stop Deandre Ayton from averaging 25 and 10? If you have Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Deandre Ayton doing very well when it comes to scoring and just playing the game as a whole, not to mention Mikal Bridges playing the best basketball of his life and Jay Crowder finally starting to get into a rhythm, not to mention also having the best bench in the NBA, then there's a legitimate chance this series is going to end in 4. While the Mavericks are a high seed and they have improved this season, and I would like to say congratulations because they've done so well, this is the worst matchup they could have had. I could see them trying to go toe-to-toe with the Warriors. That would be a very interesting matchup, but Phoenix and Dallas is a really bad matchup. The Mavericks have no advantage but having Luka Doncic, but yet Luka Doncic isn't gonna drop 100 per game. And honestly, now we get to see how good Jalen Brunson is, because a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, he's done good in the playoffs, but let's also talk about the fact that these players that break out in the playoffs like Terrence Mann and Jalen Brunson, guys like that, they've had their career highs versus the Jazz. So now we get to see, is Jalen Brunson really that good, or were we just talking about him highly when he's not all that? I'm getting a little bit off topic, but the main point is this. In this series, I expect Deandre Ayton to have an amazing series because there's no one that can guard him on the Dallas Mavericks. And the thing is, they're not going to game plan him, they're game planning for Chris Paul and Devin Booker, or whoever's just hot at that moment. When it comes to most centers, we're going to game plan for Karl Anthony Towns or Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. No one's saying, hey, we need to stop Deandre Ayton, he's our #1 priority, which is going to help Deandre Ayton so much in this series, and I really do think he's going to break out and prove to the NBA why he's one of the most underrated centers in the NBA. We need to start talking about DA because he's one of the best, and I'm sorry, but I'm so sick of me talking about good centers and I bring up Deandre Ayton and I just get called a Suns fan. It just seems like I'm trying to gaslight Deandre Ayton into making him something that he's not, but in all reality, I've been talking about DA for years and saying how good he is. And every single season, I've seen only improvement, and to be honest, I don't know how the Mavericks are going to stop him, and I don't even know how other teams can stop him if we win the series. When you watch the 2022 NBA playoffs and you're looking at the Suns and Mavericks, I want you to pay attention to Deandre Ayton and just see how he plays and see that there's not really many people that are going to be able to match up with him. In the rest of the playoffs with the teams that are left, there are only 1 to 2 centers that I think can even match up with him, and that's Joel Embiid and Jaren Jackson Jr. But in order to play Joel Embiid, we would have to make the NBA Finals, and so would they. If Deandre can only deeper his bag as deep it as already is and maybe gets a consistent 3-point jump shot, all hell will break loose and many people will start to believe that the Phoenix Suns have a super team. But other than Chris Paul, who by the way everyone thought his career was over, all the Phoenix have been able to do is just draft and develop these young players, which I think they're at the point where it's safe to say that this plan is starting to work.